Welcome to My Views Are My Own podcast. If you're listening to this on a podcast app, please leave a 5-star rating or a nice review. It really helps the show. If you're watching on YouTube, please give a like or a subscribe, or even both would be just crazy. My guest today is Avery Nunn. Avery Nunn is a flea. Sorry. I'm going to start that from the top. Avery Nunn is a freelance environmental science journalist based in Southern California. Her love for the planet and its creatures was fostered at a young age, and from the mountains to the waves has inspired every facet of her work and life since. In 2021, Avery graduated with her Master of Science degree from Columbia University, where she specialized in investigative climate reporting and visual storytelling. Since earning her degree, Avery has contributed words and photographs to National Geographic, Scientific American, Smithsonian Magazine, Atmos, Popular Science, Grist, Whalebone Magazine, The Inertia, the Surfrider Foundation, and even more. We could go on and on and on, but we're not gonna. Uh, she is an avid surfer and free diver and can often be found beneath the surface exploring the kelp forests with her camera. We got through the introduction. What's up, Avery?
Nice. Not much. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so happy to have you here. I'm so stoked that you're here. And hey, actually, you know what? Speaking of stoked, uh, your website, like, it describes you as
Oh,
like stoked on science. Uh,
yes.
what do like what? How would you? Like, what does being stoked on science mean?
Um, I feel like just translating the stoke in ways beyond its normal connotation, which is like outdoor activities that I also get totally stoked on. But I think science and learning kind of give me that same enthusiasm. And especially in terms of the outdoors, absorbing and noticing certain things from a scientific perspective just makes me a lot more excited about them and about life and storytelling.
Yeah,
So I like to say stoked on science because I feel like I will forever be stoked on science.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like, it's funny. I just started watching the Three Body Problem, and I don't want to get into some just sci-fi TV show that I started, but
Oh,
the
okay.
the premise of the show is that science has broken, like, that all known. I don't know. I'm not very far into it, so people that probably have already seen the whole thing, but the first couple episodes are like, oh, science broke, and now, like, physics doesn't make sense and nothing makes sense, and I was like,
Oh.
it's crazy. So I don't know. I would be not very stoked on that if science broke.
I don't think it will, luckily. I'm sure it'll be forever evolving, hopefully, as human brains learn more information, but I don't think it'll break.
But yeah, no, just going into, like, kind of what you just said, like, about, like, the outdoors and just
Yeah.
being stoked in general. And this is kind of like, I love California. I don't live there. I'm
Mhm.
over here in Nashville, but I visit whenever
Mm.
I can. And California is one of the best places for outdoor activities. Like, it's
Uh-huh.
there's surfing, hiking, snowboarding, forests, farms, deserts,
Mhm.
like, almost everything. I mean, it's a big state.
Mhm.
uh, but what's your favorite California outdoor, like, adventure activity type deal?
Oh gosh. Well, I grew up on the East Coast. I'm from Pennsylvania and spent my summers and a lot of childhood time in Ocean City, New Jersey, which is on the coast over there. So the ocean and the forest and farms really too in Pennsylvania have always been big scenes in my life, and the ocean's kind of always in that number one area. So surfing and playing in the waves has been something that's important to me for a long time. But once I moved to California, I started free diving, and not very intensely. I just kind of do it to, I have a scuba certification too, but I like the freeness of free diving and not having to like press a button to descend and be
Yeah.
limited, your body limited by certain things. But started freediving in the kelp forest a lot. And that is my, when I think of California, I think of like Yosemite and the Sierras, or like the kelp forests, and being underwater with a lot of the fish that I had never seen before coming to the West Coast, like Garibaldi and kelp bass and all of these things that now I feel like I interact with so much underwater, and has become such a piece of my existence in terms of scientific reporting, but also just like peace and meditation and time outside. So right now, freediving and time in the kelp forests is my kind of number one California activity. But on the flip side, like I said, Yosemite and like Mammoth Lakes area of the High Sierra are also a big piece of what I love about California.
Yeah. Yeah, so much to choose from. Not to
Hmm.
ask a question, not to sound like stupid, but free diving, that just means you don't bring oxygen tanks with you, right? Is that what that
Yes.
means? So you're
Hmm.
like you're holding your breath for as long as you can. Is that
Yeah.
okay? I know that
Yeah.
was a dumb question, but
No, no, no.
I
Yeah,
wasn't
like I
sure.
mean, even most of what I do is like glorified snorkeling. Like just we'll dive down for a bit to go check out something, come back up, flop around, dive down in different areas. I'm not, there's some intense freedivers who will do like the line drop, and it's a little bit more about like breath hold, and I think like the internal experience, which is so sick, but I kind of do it more for like the visuals and like external
Yeah,
experience. Yeah.
yeah. Why I remember now. It was on National Geographic. It was that thing that that guy Thor, the guy that plays Thor, he did
Oh,
a deal with a
Chris
free
Hemsworth.
diver, and but she was like one of the dopest free divers in the world, and her whole thing
Hmm.
was like she would go down like I don't even know how many hundreds of
Yeah.
feet down, but she would like just slowly descend. It was
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. I
I
forgot what
wonder who it was that he went with. Do you remember her name?
off the top of my head, no, but
Mm.
it's on National Geographic and it's
Yeah.
Thor, and it's the one where he learns how to hold his breath for a super long time.
Okay, I'll check it out.
I think what happened is she had some kind of traumatic experience, and this is like was her
Hmm.
therapy, and it like totally like
Hmm.
got her like just totally back to like where she needed to be, like mentally and
Hmm.
physically.
Hmm.
But then she just got hooked on the whole just idea of it, and she does like stuff where she'll go under sheets of ice, like
Oh
she'll
my gosh.
she'll like free dive into the water, but go like where she can't resurface like until she gets to like to the next like hole.
Oh, woof. Yeah, I don't do that. That's super cool though.
No, but
Yeah, it's
you do
interesting.
gnarly stuff that I've seen. Just uh, one of the photos you sent
Oh,
me
thanks.
is when you said glorified snorkeling, I was like, I would not describe it as that because it's a photo of you.
Oh, thanks.
It looks like you're snorkeling, but you're like clearly swimming with sharks and
Yeah.
photographing them and not panicking.
Yeah. Yeah, that was so awesome. And that was off of Oahu in Hawaii. And I knew I was going to see sharks that day. That was kind of like planned. But in Laguna, where I started freediving in Southern California, I'll see like taupe sharks often, which are super safe. They can get pretty big. They can be like 7 or 8 feet, but um, they're very safe. Um, and they just have like very sharky features. And I remember when I was like leopard sharks and some of the other like nurse sharks have those shapes that aren't as scary in your brain because you're like, oh, they look kind of cute. They're kind of flat. Their fins aren't that sharp. And I remember thinking like, I'm gonna see a shark one of these days while I'm underwater. I wonder how I'm going to react. And I went out this day with my friend Brooke, and she just wanted me to take her for a swim. And the conditions weren't even that great. The visibility wasn't that good, but I was like, okay, I told her I'd take her for a dive. So I'll take her out. And we swam out, and she was like, I'm so nervous about sharks. Like, I wonder if we'll see one. I was like, don't worry. I mean, we could, but we probably won't. And she was kind of fiddling with her mask at the surface. And I dove down. I was like, I'm just gonna go with my camera to the bottom, like get a couple photos or something. Went to the bottom and just kind of like sat there for a sec. I always wear a weight belt. Um, and sat at the bottom and just like literally right after she said that, this huge taupe shark just like came kind of around. It was for like further away from me, maybe like 5+ feet away from me, but like kind of maneuvered just by, and it was the first time I saw one underwater with me, and I was like, my heart is not beating fast right now. I guess I'm okay. Maybe I like handle that better than I thought that I might, but I just kind of observed it and was like, that's interesting, and went back to the surface and didn't tell Brooke because I'm like, she didn't see it, she doesn't need to know. But I was like,
Yeah.
let's just kind of go like in this shallower area. And she's like, okay. And we swam and she's like, there's so many fish. That's so amazing. And I was like, hee. And she was kind of swimming slow because she was trying to fix her mask. And I was like, no, let's really like just worry about the mask later because I didn't want her to see it and like get scared. So we came in shallower. And then when we got out of the water, I was like, just so you know, right after you said, I wonder if we'll see a shark, I saw a shark on the bottom. Um, and she's like, "Oh my God." But I wanted to make sure she kind of had the like fish fun experience.
Yeah.
And something my uncle told me once, the first time that I saw sharks while I was surfing, I saw two sharks this one morning that I was surfing in New Jersey, and he's a fisherman, and he was like, for every shark that you see, there are 100 that see you. So don't worry, kind of like in a reassuring way. They're seeing us all the time. Um, and the place where I took those photos, off of Oahu, we were going out. It was a friend of a friend's boat, um, to go check out the sharks in an area where we knew there'd be a lot of Galapagos sharks. And it was so amazing. Like I thought I maybe would be nervous that time. And there's some tiger sharks in the area there too, and they've seen great whites on those trips. So that I would definitely be very scared, I think, if I saw one of those. But I
Yeah.
remember just looking in the water and being like, oh my God, these sharks are so beautiful. They're so pretty, and the water's so blue and it's so deep. And we got in, and it was just so much fun. Like, they're just so gorgeous to observe and are such an amazing creature that I wasn't scared. I'm pleasantly surprised by how I haven't been too scared yet. But now I'll probably see a great white shark tomorrow.
Oh my God. So
Yeah.
I have two things to say. One, it's funny because you said you're from the East Coast and you like
Mhm.
started surfing out there. And I was gonna say the first time I ever went to New Jersey, I think I was like, around 18, and
Uh-huh.
I had no idea because like in movies and stuff, you always see like New York, New Jersey, and you just see them as these like dense cities. And I had
Mhm.
no idea until I was there, and I was like, oh shit, there's surf here.
Yeah.
There's good waves, and it's like, and there's
Mhm.
lots of people out there, and I was like, that was a big surprise to me. But
Mhm.
I wanted to bring up, so I have an irrational fear of sharks, and it's tough for me because I love surfing, but because
Mm.
I live in a landlocked state, so
Yeah.
I only get to surf like maybe once a year, only if I
Mm.
would get to be at a beach and I have access. But I have a story that I'm pretty sure I've never shared on this podcast. It's embarrassing, but
Okay. I'm
I
excited.
was in Florida where there was no surf at all. There's because the waves are like there were
So
barely.
small.
I was in the Gulf of Mexico, so I was just like no waves. But I've seen sharks out there, like
Mhm.
not any big ones, but I've seen some sharks. And
Mhm.
I was uh I was on a paddleboard and I was just goofing around. Like I'm not very good at paddleboarding. I was just kind of like row your boat and then just not
Uh-huh.
doing much. And my friends were in a kayak and they came by and they're like, yo man, watch out. There's like something in the water up ahead where you're going.
Oh
And I
gosh.
was like, okay, like whatever. And then and you know how like the water like the reflects the light, it's hard to see what's down there.
Yes.
This huge shadow appeared underneath. It was so
Oh
big.
gosh.
And I was like,
Oh
oh my
gosh.
God. And then I started feeling like I was gonna lose my balance. So I
Uh-huh.
belly flopped onto the paddleboard, to keep like most of my body
Oh,
like
oh.
out of the water.
Mhm.
Um it ended up being so I got a better look at it once I was down on my stomach and I could see like, all the way down. It was on the floor. It
Mhm.
was a giant wheel. Like, I don't know what kind of vehicle. It was like, trash gets in the ocean like that.
Oh.
Like like bigger than like a semi truck wheel, like bigger, like big, like
What?
some some like massive construction piece of equipment where the wheel
Oh,
is like 12 feet in diameter
uh-huh.
was just on the ocean floor. And that's why I was like, oh my God, it's a great white because it was so
Oh,
big.
yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. First, when you said giant wheel, I was like, is that a shark species that I haven't
Oh
heard
no,
of? Like,
no,
what's a
literally
giant
just a dumb wheel. Just
Oh
if
gosh.
something
That's
that
a
just
really
fell off a container ship and washed up to Florida.
uh so
Oh,
funny.
oh, but the reason I brought that up is I wanted to ask you, as someone who's in the water all the time, swimming with the sharks, I always ask people to reassure me, like marine biologists, people that I know that do this a lot.
Mhm.
Will you please reassure me one more time that I don't have anything to worry about and I should just have fun?
Yes, of course. I think I love this quote. So they say, I think it's John Mayer. It's like fear is a friend who's misunderstood. So like the fear that you have, that's okay and is just something to recognize, but not something that you need to like crawl into or let consume you. Like it's totally okay to be startled and stuff. But yeah, in
Yeah.
the ocean, I mean, obviously things happen. Um but it's so I don't want to say it's like worth the ocean playtime because I feel like that assumes that something would happen. But I think like the if however you want to live, you just got to do it and accept the risks that come with that. And I don't think that sharks are a risk. Certainly not to the extent that people think that they are. Um, People always make the comparison like driving down the street and car crash, things like that, the likelihood of other types of accidents in comparison to,
Yeah,
you know,
even lightning, which is something you never worry about.
yeah, yeah.
I'm
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna say one last shark thing, and then I'm seriously gonna get back to like
Okay.
talking about like your reporting and why you're even on the podcast.
Sure,
But
sure.
I have a story. It's everyone's got different philosophies, and I like this one a lot. I was out in Hawaii with my homies. We got to surf. It was pretty cool. I didn't. I was not out in the water this day, but my
Uh-huh.
friend was, and shout out Dominic if you're listening, man. But he was out there, and he was like the only like like Howley type dude out there. Like everybody else is like
Uh-huh.
from Hawaii, very
Uh-huh.
comfortable, very like like at peace with like whatever's going on in the water.
Yeah.
And there's a big fin, and someone yelled shark, and so he was like,
Mhm.
"Oh shit!" Like he thought they yelled
Mhm.
shark to mean like everybody get in. He starts
Uh-huh.
paddling in, and he realizes no one else is. No one else is
Mm.
scared. No one else is doing anything. And he looked at this dude who's like just some gnarly dude out there, and he's like, why is nobody freaked out about that
Yeah.
shark? It's a big shark, and and the dude had this like whole philosophy on. He's like, man, that shark's my brother, man, and he's like,
Aw.
and he goes,
Yeah.
if it's my time to go, it's my time to go, and I was like, that's kind of like that's a cool way to look at things, man. Because
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah. I like
Enough of
that
this.
perspective. I'd probably paddle in, but I also like that he said the shark's his brother. That's very cool.
Yeah, I feel like that guy probably had a really deep connection to nature and like really truly believed
Yeah.
like that shark wouldn't harm him unless it was like really was his time.
Mhm.
But I don't know. Enough of my
Interesting.
anecdotes.
Yeah.
You specialize in investigative environmental reporting. What does that look like? Like, how do you specialize in like how do you like
Yeah.
how do you keep from accidentally just reporting like some boring like traffic news?
Um, well, it's interesting to navigate the freelance space because I kind of have to now I'm in a place where I get assignments, which is great. Initially I was just pitching consistently, which is cool because then you're reporting on the things that you think are important, but on the flip side, like schedule wise and financially, like it's pretty stressful to just be pitching all the time, but that's something that you have to do at the beginning of freelancing. So when I was in grad school, I was looking at scientific papers that had kind of gone under the rug or like reading abstracts from a few years ago that people never really talked about. So one of them was this bloom of jellyfish in the Gulf of Alaska that these salmon fishermen had seen. And long story short, a group of jellyfish that was in an area that they shouldn't necessarily be due to warming temperatures, and jellyfish can survive acidification in ways that other species can't because they don't have bones or anything that would be depleted by acidification.
Yeah.
Um, so they're doing very well, jellyfish, and are going to do very well for a long time and have done very well through every previous extinction. So I was looking at that initially and then thought, okay, I want to write about climate more. So then I was working at a solely climate magazine for a while, but then was like getting assignments for deforestation laws and policy. And I think that's important, but it's not what I wanted to be writing about. I wanted to be writing about marine species primarily. So then I made the transition to freelance, and now I just kind of do a similar thing with abstracts and old scientific studies from journals where I'll sift through a lot of things and look for something that might seem like it's a compelling story. And I think it's more fun if there's like an adventure angle. So things that have been researched in the Arctic or something, I think are always really fun to write because you can speak with the scientists about like really dramatic landscape that makes it more fun for a reader to feel like they're in an adventure, not just like, here's this data on what's going on with the climate. It's like, look at this like calving ice sheet and like the blues and all of these things that make things more visual.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so now I'm kind of in a middle place where a lot of the things that I write have been assigned, which I'm super grateful for, but are less maybe what I would be my first choice. And then there's some stories that I'll be pitching that are bigger ones, that are more what I envision as the real work.
It seems like a good spot to be in though, because like
Mhm.
that way it's steady. So it's like when someone
Yeah.
hasn't picked up your pitch, at least someone's like,
Mhm.
"We'll hear right about this thing that's at least in your lane." So
Yeah.
that's tight. But
Mhm.
actually, in addition to obviously, like I said in the beginning, not just that you write about, you do this investigative journalism, but you're a photographer, and
Yes.
you've got a pretty amazing portfolio, and
Oh, thank you.
I know I brought up earlier, like, the photo with the sharks, and that's just because you sent that for me to me to, like, use for some
Uh-huh.
promo, but,
Mhm.
I was just curious, like, what is the most difficult photo you've ever captured? Has there ever been something you were like
Ooh.
you're like, I want this photo," and, like, you really had to work to get it, like, it didn't
Oh gosh. Yeah, that's interesting. I think I we've already talked about kelp, but I'm just gonna circle it back to kelp. I think the kelp for it, I mean, I think it's the most fun, maybe because it's a little bit challenging too, um, is can be quite difficult because it's so dependent on visibility, um, the light, like golden hour kelp forest beams look totally different than like a late morning, super blue and vibrant kind of lighting. So it's like choosing the lighting depends on the health of the kelp as well. So sometimes the trees won't look as healthy, and that's not really appealing in a photo
Yeah,
and is important to capture. But yeah, and just of course the ocean's always moving. So like the the trees are just swaying, and I've only shot underwater freediving. I've never shot while scuba diving, mostly just because my housing can't go below 30 feet of depth, so I haven't brought it below that. But in that case, like scuba, I think makes things easier for photography because you can be really still, and freediving, you're not really able to stay super, super still. I try, and the weight belt helps a lot, but for capturing those photos underwater, it really took a while for me to figure out how to make things sharp and how to like keep kind of my composure. And sometimes you have to take a few photos and then I'm like, okay, now I know it's going to sway a little bit this way. So I have to stay underwater for like this many more seconds to get the shot that I'm envisioning. Or I see this fish that's going to come that I really want to be in the background. So I need to like hold my composure here for a sec and stay
Yeah.
underwater. Um, Never to risky boundaries or anything like that, but just in a way that you're kind of always thinking. And I think that has made it one of the more difficult things to photograph, but also definitely the most fulfilling to photograph. Like taking photos underwater is my favorite thing.
I never
Uh,
even thought about the aspect that you use sunlight. I mean, because
yeah.
unlike I mean, obviously unlike studio photography or a lot of other things, like
Yeah.
you're not bringing artificial light with you,
No,
or are you?
no. And people do bring flashes and stuff underwater. Um, and no judgment for that, but I feel like I try to be as least intrusive as possible. I don't know. I feel like flash can just be like kind of a lot for different species, and there's
Yeah,
usually like
yeah, for
harbor
sure.
seal pups and sea lions around too when I'm photographing things or photographing them, and I just try to seem as natural as possible in that ecosystem. So I never bring any form of lighting or anything. But it's so much fun and it's so cool and it's such like a way to connect with the ecosystem, and it makes me feel a lot closer to the planet. And like just if friends come with me, it makes me feel closer to them. Like it's a place where I also reflect on like people that have passed away. I can feel really close with them underwater for some reason at times, so it's just like a very intense experience, and it's so much fun. I'm always happy when I get out of the water.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I can see why you are drawn to the free diving aspect of it, because it's
Hmm.
like, especially like what you're saying, like when you're trying to get this perfect shot and you have to just wait, get it right, calm yourself, keep yourself
Yeah.
still. You're not down there covered in gear, able to just sit
No.
still and then use a flash bulb and scare every single animal in sight.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
that was an unexpected answer, but it was great. Yeah, it's great. I didn't even well, I thought I figured you were gonna say something like, "Oh, I had to take a picture of like a octopus and I couldn't catch up with it," but you were like
No, not yet. I hope that happens though.
uh, so I
With an
guess
oct-
you actually answered my next question, which was gonna be like, "Where's your favorite place to shoot?" But I'm gonna go ahead and assume you would say in the kelp forest, right?
Yes, yeah, there. Or I mean, I love Yosemite. As I said, it's just one of my favorite places. I love photographing Yosemite or anywhere that has like oak trees or pine trees.
Yeah.
Um, but I've before I started shooting underwater, I was shooting waves and surf a lot. Like I would paddle out for a surf and then come in and then grab my camera and take photos of my friends and then put the camera away and go out for a surf again. And I love wave photography also, but I kind of, when I got really stoked on the kelp forest, I took a break. And then a few months ago, I realized, like, oh my God, I think I forget how to shoot waves. And there's such an art to that too, that I think is, if you haven't tried it, it's hard for people to understand. Like my friends and other people that are such good wave and surf photographers, I respect them so much because the timing is so hard, and like the distance, and you have to be treading oftentimes to stay on the surface and dive under kind of intense waves sometimes too, and get machine washed around with your camera if you like miss the white water a little bit and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think that's so much fun. I have a friend, um, my friend Sydney, she shoots all film in the water and on land too. But it's so fun. Like our relationship kind of blossomed from just both of us loving to shoot in the water in different ways. I always shoot digital and she always shoots film. But we've been like tossed around together in waves and also just like been in the kelp forest when there's like dark patches down there or super sunny, blissful patches also. Um, yeah, and just like the friendships and the things that have come from photography in the water has been so amazing.
Yeah, it's a lot to think, like, how many elements go into that, like, everything you just said there, 'cause
Uh-huh.
sometimes I think of, like, my photography is, like, I try to take a picture of my dog with my phone, and then it's just, like, it's just a blur because she's, like, fast and, like and
Oh,
I'm like, "Well, it's close enough." You can tell there's a dog in it,
yeah.
I've been put in the, washing machine cycle myself,
Uh-huh.
in the ocean, and I couldn't imagine trying to hang on to, like, a camera. Uh, one of the, like, worst ones, like, I feel like the closest I came to drowning in one of those kind of situations,
Oh gosh.
it was a place, it's called, like, Wakapu. It's, like, got a really, really shallow, shore break. You can't surf there
Mm,
because it's just, because you could be in a spot where the water's ankle deep, but the wave is head high. So
mhm.
you can body surf, and it's really,
Mm.
really fun. You can do all kinds of fun
Woo.
stuff there. But I was not respecting the ocean that day, and that's one of those things that you gotta always keep in mind. You always have to respect the ocean, but I was doing stupid
Yeah,
stuff like,
it'll put you in your place.
hell yeah. I was, like, drop kicking the waves and just doing dumb, because it was
Uh-huh.
because well, it's so fun because when it's a very unique type of wave environment where, like, the wave is as tall as you, but you're standing on the sand and you can jump into the
Mm,
wave.
mhm.
But
Crazy.
yeah, it got me so good. I was under for so long. I finally
Ah.
came out. I was like, I actually crawled out of the, ocean. I was, like, throwing up water. Everyone on the beach was looking at me like I was an idiot, and I was like, "I
Like a little
deserve
cook
this."
of the day video, sadly.
Alright.
Yeah.
So,
No, you.
earlier this year, you wrote an article about, the connection between communicating with whales and
Yes.
communicating with aliens. Uh,
Yes.
but can you explain what that was about? What that article was about?
Sure, sure. That was, an assignment. That was my first assignment from Scientific American. And I was a little felt a little weird about it at first. So I was like, aliens, like I just care about life on Earth. Like, what?
Yeah,
But it was based on a study that these scientists at SETI did. And they're a group of amazing researchers, astronomers, and physicists and marine biologists. And they basically try to figure out ways to decipher language, different ways of deciphering language, with kind of the idea in mind that one day, if we connect with a non-Earth species will have ways to decipher different codes and languages, um, which is so like far out from my everyday thinking. But I think it's important for there to be people who do think about this kind of stuff. So I'm like, I'll talk to anyone, sure. And they were on a boat and had an interaction with a humpback whale, in which they used a whale song recording to have an exchange back and forth with a whale for 20 minutes or so. And kind of try to decipher what the different sounds were meaning from the whale. And basically it was pretty preliminary, which they said, but they are hoping to use that kind of communication to help decipher different codes, but also just in the sense of working with free, wild animals being a way that we can interact with them respectfully, but that like species don't need to be in captivity for there to be a study or an exchange. There's like a mutual respect.
yeah,
And um yeah, I it was really fun to work on. It was very interesting. It was very out of my comfort zone, but was a really cool story. And I adored the scientists. They were amazing.
yeah.
Um,
That's
mhm.
fascinating. Yeah, I urge everyone to check it out.
Thanks.
Uh, I can't recall the title of the article is pretty much close to what the question was, but that's in,
I don't even remember.
Smithsonian.
Yeah.
Just just
It was yeah,
look
Scientific
look
American.
up Avery Nunn humpback whales. You'll find the
Yes.
article, and it's
Yeah.
but yeah, I love the idea of yeah, learning how to communicate with humpback whales and being able to, like,
Mhm.
potentially apply that to communicating with extraterrestrials. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes tons of you actually
Yeah.
I'm I remember, when I was a kid, I watched a Star Trek movie,
Mhm.
and the premise was that blue whales were the most intelligent species on planet Earth, but people didn't know that because
Hmm.
blue whales like are, they're not violent and they don't try to communicate with us. And it ended up being some kind of like, actually, I don't remember the plot. All I remember is that blue whales were the most intelligent species on planet Earth, and it was really important to like the Star Federation to like address that.
That's amazing. I love that. I love Star Wars and Star Trek. Something I think this was in maybe the sequel of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. There's this quote, like I'm gonna goof the exact words, but someone says something like, why do dolphins just like play and in the ocean and jump around all the time? And then it's something like the dolphins are wondering why humans spend all this time stressing and whatever else, creating like these hierarchies and things like. And I think the actual quote is so good. I don't remember exactly what it is, but it like poses this good question about intelligence. And this was something I tried to discuss in the humpback article, is like what we define as intelligence also is obviously from a completely anthropogenic lens that we're going to have when we analyze anything, but like our idea of like this species is smart and this species is less smart is so black and white and so like closed-minded, almost like
Yeah.
there's just that's just our lens of intelligence. Even in communicating with the humpback whale, it's like because we think that they have a certain level of intelligence, which of course I think that they do. But yeah, just the way that we think about different things, like comparison to, I don't know, a snail, like doesn't
Yeah.
mean there should be less respect for the snail. Um, yeah.
It's like that meme, and I'm not going to say it correctly, and it's been kind of like gone through different permutations, but it's like humans were given this like this paradise planet that we live on that has
Mhm.
all of our needs are met, and we invented like debt and like like hustle grind culture
Right.
and like war instead of just
Yeah.
appreciating
Sure.
this but also to your point, I love that in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the most
Mhm.
intelligent species on Earth are dolphins, and that's why they play all the
Mhm.
time. And
Mhm.
when they're building the international space highway to bulldoze Earth, the dolphins are the only ones that leave because they're the only ones that are smart enough to know they have to leave.
Yeah, so funny. Yeah, and I love like 42 in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, like for
That's the
people
answer.
who haven't, yeah. Yeah, and so it's just like we're not even asking the right questions. Like the answer is 42 and then it's like what the heck is the question? We'll probably never know what the
What is
meaning of the universe
what is the
is and all those things, but I love that.
the question is what is the meaning of life, the universe, and everything, right?
Yeah.
That's how they pose that
Yeah,
question to the
42.
most powerful supercomputer in the world, and it takes it like a
Yeah.
million years to say 42.
Yeah. So good. It's such good writing.
Speaking of good writing, you wrote an article last year about Greenland's marine ecosystem and
Hmm.
how there's new species arriving in the Arctic waters.
Hmm.
Can you explain what's happening, what's causing it, and some of the possible outcomes of this
Yeah. Oh
situation
gosh,
in Greenland's waters?
that one was from a long time ago. I would have to reread my own article to be refreshed on the specifics of what's happening, but the broader picture is what's happening everywhere or nearly everywhere of marine species
Yeah,
redistribution due to changing temperatures and acidification and storms and pollution and all of these things that are changed. I can't remember if I'm thinking of the right thing, but it might have been something that was changing with migration patterns for those whales. And that's happening a lot with birds and a lot of marine species too. Um, but migration patterns are shifting, which changes a lot and changes what they'll be able to feed on in at different times of the year. So which things are being eaten at different times of the year, what species are thriving and which ones aren't. So obviously it's all connected and super
Yeah.
circular. So every change that happens affects all of the other changes that are happening, which isn't an eloquent way to say it, but that's just what it is. And that Greenland piece is just kind of an example of so many things that are happening, which is species being in a different place than they should be, or have been previously.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah.
Okay. I was just
Mhm,
curious about like, but yeah, that I agree with you. It ties into everything, and it ties into it's not just the ocean; it's land mammals. I mean, it's
mhm,
my own neighborhood.
mm.
Uh, just that there's so many coyotes here now, and like and
Oh,
deer, and like I live
mhm,
in a metropolitan area. Like there's no forest anywhere near me, but
mhm.
because of the developers, the destruction, and the bulldozing, there's no
Yeah.
place for them to go. So they're just kind of like living in little like nooks and crannies in the city now, and
Mhm.
it's kind of gnarly. It makes me sad. It makes me happy to see them because like I love coyotes. I think they're cool. But then
They are cool.
but it makes me sad thinking like that they have to like live like, in like a sewer ditch, you know?
Gosh, yeah. Yeah, they're so cute, aren't they?
Yeah. Oh, I've always loved coyotes. I used to go out to, I was born in Arizona. I used to visit there all the
Oh,
time. And that's where like there's this dry riverbed where I used to mountain bike, and it was
mhm.
always full of coyotes, and they're just like people act like they're scared. They're like little fluffy little dogs. I love them, man.
I
I mean,
know.
don't try to pet them, but
Yeah. Yeah. Whenever I've gone camping in Joshua Tree in California, I've always heard coyotes in the nighttime. And it's so cute. Like their little howl is just so sweet. They just sound like
yeah.
all of these puppies like howling for their I think they circle their prey and like howl together, and that could be totally wrong. That's something a friend told me. Um but there was one time they were so close. I was like, are they circling my tent? Like, am I the prey? But also they sound so cute, so I'm just not even scared because they're so sweet sounding little puppies.
Actually, let me do a quick shout out to a past episode because I did an episode, and if you want to find it, it's just called the
Oh,
Coyote episode, and we
oh,
just
nice.
there was a documentary filmmaker doing a documentary on coyotes, and I learned a lot of stuff. And one of the reasons, like they're actually a pretty successful species given the
Mm,
circumstances because people try to kill them so much, they try to trap them,
mm,
even with the diminishing habitat, but they're first of all they're extremely smart, they're super adaptive,
mm.
and they're able to breed with a lot of types of domestic dogs, which is like
Oh,
giving them the ability to continue like keep their population, and then also the more diverse the population is, the healthier they are.
mhm.
So think about that next time if you see a coyote and you don't like it.
Ooh,
Be think about this. That's might just be mostly a dog.
yeah. Oh my gosh. I'd love to have a half coyote, half yellow lab or something.
Yeah, let me contact my my black market dog breeder guy.
Perfect.
Okay, back to you and your writing. Sorry.
No, no.
I digressed and now I'm back. I just want to bring up just one more of your articles and then I'll stop
Okay. Thanks.
quizzing you on things that I know you wrote a very long time ago.
No, it's all right.
But this we have to talk about this because we were just talking about dolphins and I just
Mhm.
have to bring it back up because it's an article you wrote.
Oh, I already know which one you're gonna say.
You've you've written about the rich inner lives of dolphins and how that can help teach humans about climate solutions.
Mhm.
How does that work, and what can dolphins teach us, and how can they teach us?
Yeah, that yeah, that one's really old, but that was so fun. That was the first piece that I did for Grist, which is where I ended up working full time for a bit. And that dolphin story was kind of like they had a issue, I guess, like an issue of stories that were a little bit more abstract solutions. And I had been talking with one of the editors who I love. He's one of my favorite editors I've ever worked with. His name's Chuck, and he and I had been talking about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy actually and dolphins. And we were thinking like what's something that's kind of abstract that we can discuss as a climate solution, and looking at dolphins and kind of the joy, this like joy piece, and kind of what we were saying earlier even in this podcast, like not judging different species based on what we interpret as their intelligence, and like attributing certain things. So we might attribute like joy, feelings of joy, or playfulness to dolphins, and I feel like there's a science side of me that almost stubbornly insists that I don't attribute those things because I know that it's through a human lens. And then there's this other kind of human side, which is like, well, I do feel like I have seen them express that, or at least what I think is that. So it's like this weird balance, but the story kind of speaks with a few different scientists about that, and just traits that they have that are things that we can learn from them. It was not like a silly piece. I don't want to say silly, but it's definitely abstract and and playful, in a climate solution sense. Um, yeah, and people should go check it out if they want to read the specifics, because Grist is a wonderful outlet.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but it's fun. Sometimes I do not I don't ever try to make things dry, but like pretty concrete, direct scientific reporting, and then other times I get to do these really creative and playful and um open-ended narrative sides of reporting, which are both really fun. I don't necessarily like one better than the other, really. Yeah.
I will say too, like, and don't get me wrong, I just love I love animals. Like I just went and talked like for 5 minutes about how much I love coyotes, which is, some
Uh-huh.
people like really don't like them.
Mm.
Uh, and that's fine. You don't have to like everything I like, guys. No, but I was gonna say, out of all the animals that like I've encountered, I feel like dolphins are the ones you really can tell like the most that they're playing and having
Mhm.
fun. Like as far as like wild animals, obviously,
Mhm.
if you have a dog, you're like, my dog likes
Yes.
to play and have fun. Like, but I'm saying
Yeah.
like out in the wild, you're out in the wild. This animal
Yeah.
doesn't know you.
Hmm.
I just want to share one like small anecdote. It's just
Yeah.
I went for a run. I think I was in South Carolina. I was on some beach, and I was going
Hmm.
for a run on the beach, just trying to get like a workout in. And a dolphin like kind of caught my eye, like, we kind of like made a little connect, and I was like,
Mm.
"Oh, cool, a dolphin!" And
Hmm.
then the dolphin started swimming like alongside, alongside me, and like I'm not a
Mm.
fast runner, I was like,
Mhm.
and I was on sand, but
Uh-huh.
it was keeping my pace. It was like
Mm.
I'm gonna like go with this dude for a while, and the dolphin was
Mm.
like
Amazing.
jumping, doing like, flips, and just like,
Uh,
but just it was clearly hanging out with me. And I remember like
mm.
I was getting, gassed, and I was getting winded, and I was like, oh no, I just want to run forever. I want to keep going. So this dolphin keeps
Yeah.
swimming with me. But finally I was just like, I can't go anymore. And the dolphin was like,
Yeah.
went back out to sea. And I
Yeah.
was just like, but that dolphin did that just to like, just to be cool and funny and
Mhm.
fun, in my opinion. I mean, obviously I'm not
Right.
at the mind of a dolphin, but you know,
But yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, one of my dad is obsessed with this video, that someone is playing fetch with their dog on the beach, and a sea lion starts like chasing the ball down the shoreline with the dog and like coming back, and they kind of just are playing fetch together back and forth. My dad's obsessed with it. It's so it's so cute. But it's so sweet to have those interactions, especially when it's a wild animal. It always makes you feel a little more like, this is the
Yeah.
real deal a little bit.
Well, yeah, whenever I encounter a wild animal that I'm not expecting to
Mhm.
see, I always look, guys, I'm gonna sound a little bit like woo woo right now, but seriously, whenever I do that, I'm like, I have to look up like what is the symbolism of this
Oh.
animal. If it's
Uh-huh.
something like you really don't think you're, or like, if you're just like, this happens to me sometimes. Where I'll be like on a city street, and like a
Mhm.
fox will just pop out in front of me, like look at me, and then kind of like
Uh-huh.
go away, and I'm like, that fox is telling me something.
Yeah. Yeah, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, take it however you, I mean, shoot. Or you could, like, if you want, you can believe in the stock market and,
Yes.
but
Whatever you want.
whatever brings you joy. Animals bring me a lot more joy than looking at the Dow Jones. Hey, so speaking of being brought more joy with animals or just
Oh.
nature in general, um, what's your advice? Like, so I mean, just you've found a way to make your life about being connected to nature,
Yeah.
being in the ocean, being in the mountains. What's your advice for people trying to have a stronger connection to nature and the outdoors? Especially if they they can't just switch careers right now, and they got to do it.
Yeah.
They got to do it the old fashioned way.
Yeah. It's so interesting to me every time I get like these super sweet messages on Instagram or LinkedIn, especially from women who are around my age who are feeling inspired, I guess, which is super cool. But asking for advice, and I'm always like, my gosh, I am figuring it out so hard. Like, I really, every day, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, am I doing the right thing? I do feel like I'm doing, for sure what I want to be doing, but there's no, there was no map laid out. So I feel like the number one thing was just learning to trust my intuition and what I think is right. If I think a story is right, if I think working for something is or isn't, or saying no to things. Um, at times, which now I like can do that. At the beginning, I think you can't really say no to opportunities because you have to be as open as possible and then fine tune what you want to do. But I feel like it sounds cheesy, but it's really just trusting the intuition and believing that you can do it. I think it was hard for me initially because I never wanted to sacrifice photography or writing or science. I knew that those were the things that I was most interested in. And I like went down the road of maybe I'll be a scientist, but then I'm gonna have to just hone in on geology or one thing, and I'll be limited in what I can learn in other areas. And a lot of lab time sounded boring to me. And then I was like, okay, well then I'll be a writer, but then I love my camera so much, and that makes me feel a bit more free sometimes. So I don't want to sacrifice that. And I love photography, but I don't want to give up science and writing. So it was just kind of learning to trust how to interweave all of those things and like stubbornly not let any of them go. So kind of like staying strong, trusting intuition. And in
Yeah,
terms of outdoor time, and just like planet respect and respecting other species and people, I think it's really important to not have judgment for like if people are trying their best, like people who wonder what can I do to do better for the environment or XYZ. I think the number one thing that you can do is not judge other people's situation. Like if they have to buy a plastic bottle at one time, like they might be a single mom with 3 kids trying to finagle a really busy schedule, but want to do better for the environment. Like I think there's a lot of shame that people bring. And a lot of the times it's in journalism and in scientific writing sometimes too. Like I think that's just it's such a shame that there's shame because everyone's just trying to do their best, and like don't shame yourself. Just know that you can make the best decisions you can and try your best, but also we're only alive for however long we're alive. So like enjoy the ride and trust your intuition and do what's going to make you fulfilled first, and then happiness and all of those other things
yeah,
afterward. Yeah.
yeah. And to your point about like some plastic bottles or whatever, like,
Mhm.
you know, let's be completely honest about this. Uh, unless you're the like CEO of Exxon or BP and you're listening right now, don't blame yourself that hard. If you are the CEO of BP or
Then
Exxon and you're
I have
listening
a
right now,
lot to say to you.
you need to get your shit together and quit telling people to worry about plastic bottles.
Yes.
Just
Yeah.
divest
Mhm.
from carbon and
Yeah.
start sequestering carbon right now. and put all your R and
Yeah.
D into renewable energy. And you know what? Look, I'm sorry if you want to make $2 billion a year and you have to cut your salary down to like 90 million. That's
Mhm.
just the right thing to do. So
Yes.
if you guys are
Yeah.
listening,
I
thanks
hope
for
they are.
I appreciate that you're listening to the show. Please leave me a 5-star rating and a nice review, and also, or if you're watching, like and subscribe if you are the CEO of any major fossil fuel company.
Yes. It is a shame, like, it's just that individual burden that is placed that people see as an individualistic burden, which every article that I write that discusses, like, I had a zero waste assignment last year and I had to kind of be like, okay, we can talk about zero waste, but at the end of this, like, it's really important for people to see the issue is bigger corporations. Like, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be trying your best or taking whatever steps you can at home to not have like a plastic conditioner bottle or whatever it is. But it does mean, like, do not shame other people or create conflict based on things that really are so much bigger. Um,
Yeah,
than
yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah. That's the thing
it
is like that.
detracts from the real problem.
Sometimes when you are holier than thou to people,
Yeah.
you actually push them further away from uh the goal. Like when you're like,
Yeah.
oh, you don't do this right, oh, you don't do that right, or like in any movement. And there are so many movements in the world that are deserving of our time and attention. But
Mhm,
if you're doing better than other people, and if you're more like more dedicated, and you do more, that's
mhm.
great, and you should be very proud of yourself. But if someone's trying and they're not trying as hard as you, or if they're not, you don't like, don't shame them, because that's
Yeah.
you don't own righteousness. Like
Yeah,
that's
right.
that's
Yeah. Mhm,
sorry, I encountered that recently, and I found it
mm,
to be very, very off-putting. It was unrelated to
totally.
this, but it was something where I was like, hey, I'm doing my best here. Like
Yeah, just be kind.
leave me alone. All right.
Yeah.
Avery, I have to tell you,
Yes.
we are getting dangerously close to the lightning round.
I figured.
Okay. This is the part where I'm going to ask you a series of questions super fast. No time
Okay.
to think. Gut
Okay.
reactions only. And let's find out. So I didn't write this. It was written by co-producer Colleen. So I have no idea
Okay.
what the questions
Ooh,
are.
thanks.
Uh okay. This one's called Lightning Round Extreme Opposites. Let's
Okay.
see what we have in store. What is the all right, cool. What is the biggest animal you've ever encountered? Like face to face.
A bear.
You've encountered a bear like in
Yes.
oh wow, that's
A
crazy.
few. Yes.
Wow. I've seen a bear in the distance, but I've never I would never say that's
Oh,
crazy.
I wouldn't say face to face, but 4 feet. Sort of see.
Whoa. That's
I know.
awesome. What kind of bear was it?
Yeah. Black bear. It was brown, but it was a black bear. Um, and it was in Yosemite. I saw 3 bears in one day in Yosemite, and then in the Tetons in Wyoming, I've seen a few as well. And they just don't care that I'm there. They do scare me. My heart gets a little more than seeing
Yeah.
sharks. It's a little ooh.
Yeah, bears are
Um,
scary. Okay,
yeah.
what's the smallest animal that you've ever encountered face to face?
Face to face. I mean, I guess there's some kind of small microbial guys on my face right now. Ladybug.
Yeah. But you're right.
Other than those.
There's probably some kind of like oh, what are those things called? They're called bears too. Water bears?
Oh, I don't know.
You know those like they're like the smallest animal. They're like microscopic and they look like bears.
Oh, I don't know that. No.
Oh. Well, there's probably one in your eyeball right now. So
Nice. Okay,
all
those
right.
guys.
What is the nicest animal you've ever encountered?
The nicest. My brother.
Okay, that's a good
My younger
answer.
brother.
All right, what is the meanest animal you've ever encountered?
Oh, mean? Oh, this is hard. I know it's supposed to be lightning. There's nothing. There's
Well, I
nothing.
mean, if your brother's a human, you can just pick a human now.
Yeah, I know. The meanest.
You probably don't want to call anybody out. I get it.
No, yeah, but definitely a human.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll just say human.
Yeah,
Okay. So
humans, middle
nicest
school girls.
nicest was one particular human. Meanest was,
Yeah.
let's just say, a human. Okay. What is the most thrilling place you've ever visited?
Mm, Patagonia mountain range
Oh,
in,
sick.
yeah, Chile and Argentina. I backpacked there for 3 weeks between college and grad school, and it was dope.
I'm jealous. All right. What's the most boring place you've ever visited?
Um, I really don't get bored. I think like grass is interesting. Um, well, I
Well,
feel bad for anyone that lives in Kansas, but driving through Kansas, I was like, this is pretty boring looking.
it's
Oh,
no
that'll offend someone.
it's no Patagonia, Chile backpacking trip.
No, but
Okay.
sweet in its own ways, I'm sure.
I'm sure that if you had gotten out of the car and gone to the right
Yeah.
rest stop, you might have seen something very exciting in Kansas.
Yes.
So we'll give them
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
And no offense to anybody listening in Kansas. Uh, I don't. Didn't you guys just win the Super Bowl? You should be happy. Okay. What is
Yeah.
the most pristine place you've visited?
Pristine. Um, hmm. Pristine. I'd say Banff slash Jasper National Park areas in Canada. Pretty pristine.
Of course, it's
Super.
in Canada. Yeah.
I know.
It's like
Yeah.
clean Canada. All right.
Yeah.
What's the grossest place you've ever visited?
The grossest. The trunk of my car after a surf trip.
Okay, I have one last question. This is not a lightning round question. This is just the most important question of the day. Uh,
Oh, no pressure.
Avery, where can people like find your photography,
Yeah.
find like read your articles, follow you, like all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Instagram is where I stay the most up to date with things. Sometimes I go on accidental hiatus where I post nothing for a while if I'm just like out reporting or enjoying the outdoors somewhere for a while. But my Instagram is Earthy Ave. That's the #1 place. And there's contact and links for things from there. I'm pretty sure I have a Twitter, but I never really.
Oh no, we lost Avery. And we're back.
So sorry.
What you were okay? You were in the middle. I think you were about to get to your website. So we did
Yeah.
Instagram. Okay.
So sorry. I think my laptop just like overheated and died.
I was I yelled, "Oh no!"
I know, I did too. I was like, "Oh my God." Sorry about that.
Oh, it was
That
cool. I'm so glad you were able to reconnect and we were able to finish the podcast.
Yes. So sorry. Yeah, the gist is just Instagram is the place to find everything. My website is linked on there as well. But it's just my name.com, averyskylarnunn.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, guys, I highly recommend you check out Avery's photography, writing, all that stuff. And you know what? It's also super easy if you're not doing social media. Just Google Avery Nunn. Her website is the very first thing that pops up.
Oh, nice.
So that's my shout out to the website.
Yeah.
Avery, thank you so much for being on the
Thank
podcast
you.
today. Is so cool to finally get to talk to you. And
Yeah,
I hope
you
you have
too.
I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful Saturday.
Thank you. You too. Happy weekend.
Thank
And
you.
thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. So
Thank you.
flattered.